outfit, but instead I'm wearing my go Toronto Blue Jays jersey since that's the big game tonight here in Toronto, and everybody's very excited about that. So let's see how that goes. I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves. But we've got a really good lineup today. We've got our friends from Paris who will be joining us as well. They're doing a kickoff of one of their event and meetup in Paris this evening. I guess they're a few hours ahead of us, so that should be fun to see and see what's happening there. I don't know if Rob's joining us. He's in the midst of moving to a new place, so I guess we'll see if he joins us at some point. But in the meantime, I'm sure we'll be able to improvise a little bit. And for those who don't know, we've got Dimple as well, who's helping with some of the organization. Who do we got lined up here today for our show, Dimple? We've got a few folks, right?
Yeah, so we have Comburn. He's the senior product manager at LearnCan Education, and the AI agents personalize the learning pathways in real time. So I'm not sure if he's presenting today, but he's lined up. He's based in Ireland. And second, we have Mondeep Chakravarti. He's the head of AI strategy and delivery. He's based in London. So he's planning to present on the application of Dragon's agentic engineering toolkit.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, Dragon, you've been doing some really cool stuff as well recently, and you had a kickoff of the first event in Serbia this week. How did that go? I
That
think I saw Dragon.
that went, quite okay. So it was like more than 30 people in person, and everything was recorded, shared on YouTube, and I hope we will upload that also to the Agentics videos database soon. We already have a new meetup scheduled for 2 weeks. So on 14th of November, and as I saw, before this, I even published that like 2 or 3 hours ago, and we already have 11 or 12 people applied. So, I expect again at least, 30 people or more to come next time. So
Oh, nice. Congratulations. That sounds like a nice community that's starting to form there. Yeah, and I think our friends had an event this week also in Dubai in Abu Dhabi, if I'm not mistaken. How'd that go? Was that Timu or Tommy that
I was,
were
Rune, it was actually last weekend. It was on Saturday a week ago.
Oh, okay.
So it was held and there was like 35 people-ish
30. Oh, okay.
in
And
42. And nice talks there and I liked it.
okay. Yeah, and today the folks at in Paris are also doing 42. I think we've got I'm sure I think it's the same organization if I'm not
Yes, it's the
mistaken.
same. It's a very interesting concept that they had. Most likely the French guys perhaps will be talking about it, but it's very interesting approach what they had for this is all it's a free place to learn and study coding in a very effective way.
Yeah, they're sort of introducing the concepts of coding to a lot of different markets, mostly internationally
Yeah.
focused, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot in emerging markets like Malaysia and other places. So we really appreciate all the effort and access that they've been giving us because it's a really good organization if you're not familiar. And yeah, Doug, I wore this for you. This is Toronto Strong here representing. Yeah, so as you probably have heard, I mean, you can't miss if you've been in any of our live casts over the last week or so. Toronto has gone a little crazy for baseball at the moment. And Nick, what's the current status? We're leading in the series, right?
Yes, we've come back to pull ahead 3 games to 2. We can win the World Series tonight. So Gosman is heading the mound against Yamamoto. Yamamoto is very, very good. So this is a little bit of an issue, but I think we got 2 games at home. The guys are going to get it done. They've got 2 chances. I had Jason 7 to start the series. Vladdy Guerrero's on fire. He's been just like carrying the team through the playoffs, and yeah, it's going down.
And
30 years in the making, right? 30. Last time I watched the Blue Jays win the World Series was on my dad's knee, you know?
Yeah, as well as I think I was a teenager as well. It's been a while since they've been there. And one of the players, we've got Bieber, which I know it could be related to our friend Guy. I don't know. Guy, are you any relation to the pitcher on the with the last name Bieber on the Blue Jays? I know there's a
I
kind of distant relation probably to another famous Bieber, right?
yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny that claim. So
Yeah. There's definitely some Canadian lineage with Guy. There has to be. So yeah, it's exciting, right? And Nick, who's your favorite player? What's his Savage? That's the guy?
Yeah, well, he's my new favorite. He's my new favorite. But I'm a Vladdy guy. I really like Vladdy, and Clement is sort of that try hard utility player that he played in the minors and clawed his way. We've got a lot of those character players, so I'm ecstatic. Can't wait for the game to get started tonight.
Yeah, it should be a good one. And we're competing with Halloween, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I haven't seen the city so excited about something in a while, so it's great to see the vibe. And for our friends in LA, may the best team win. I can't completely pick sides here. What else we got going? Hey, Jed, what's happening?
So, currently trying to see how to process data that exceeds the size of the server that it's running. And within LLMs, there's a benchmark called the Spider 2 benchmark that tries to run incredibly difficult SQL queries across tables that are hundreds of columns wide. And with any luck, this can augment a $70,000 to $90,000 a year data analyst.
Okay. So I like the word. I like the term augment, and so you're not looking to create a new data analyst. You're trying to empower them. Is that the idea?
I need someone to be accountable.
Someone to blame.
To be accountable.
I like blame, but I hire an accountant to be accountable. But yeah, I think as long as you need someone to blame, I think we're safe. At least most of us in the industry are safe until
Alors,
until we
merci,
don't
merci d'être
care.
à l'heure. Je veux juste vous informer qu'on attend encore
Oh,
quelques
hey,
personnes.
Paul.
Donc, on va temporiser pendant 5
I'm going
minutes et puis on va
to mute him
commencer.
for
On
a
finira à
minute.
l'heure.
We're
Donc voilà,
also
merci d'attendre un petit peu.
all right, sorry about that, guys. We're also potentially doing a broadcast with our friends in Paris at some point. I think he was doing an audio check there. So, comment ça va? All right. So, in terms of what we're going to cover today, so we've got a few different things that we're going to introduce here. For those who didn't join us yesterday, you'll notice that I did a variety of different vibe coding sessions, and one of the big things that I released this week was a focus on basically doing security and sort of high speed related activities in sort of securing your environment. Now, the approach that I was showing, I got a little bit of pushback on that, to be honest, and I probably deserved it, I suppose. But the system, I have two. I've got defense, which I realized after I published it was sort of focused. Well, I spelt with the sort of British approach to defense with a C, and I got a bunch of people complaining that it makes no sense to spell AI defense with a C, which I didn't realize was going to be such a big deal. So for my American friends, I changed it also so you could also have a defense with an S. And American spelling wrapper for AI defense, just for you. And now we're gonna have a battle to see if the international language or the French one, where it looks like currently international is leading by a few hundred. So we'll do that. But anyway, basically, I wanted to show you this quick, and this is a system that I devised based on the Midstream platform that basically allows you to do kind of introspection into your stream of the input and output from a language model. Now, a lot of there's a lot of systems out here that currently do similar things. The most popular being a platform called LLM Guard, and essentially that just kind of cleans up any kind of malicious requests. So it checks for personal identifiable information or the forget all sort of commands problems that you might see. Now, one of the challenges that that system had is it's static. So you could define the system pretty specifically to try to find different types of exploits, assuming you knew what the exploits were. But the problem is a lot of the if you're good at doing exploits, you can actually basically sort of probe these systems and test various ways to get around those exploits. So one of the easiest ways to get around a sort of you forget all your previous commands exploit, which is by at this point kind of rudimentary, but is to try to say the same thing without actually saying it with words. So that is sometimes referred to as a symbolic attack. That's basically using other characters or other languages or other non-obvious ways to describe the sort of workaround. And so what I'm doing in this particular scenario is I'm looking at the data that's flowing to and from the language model and then trying to infer different potential exploits. But what's interesting about this particular approach that I've taken is the speed. So what I'm essentially doing is, I guess I'm back on on this one. I might have accidentally updated my entire README. Oopsie. Um, anyway, so basically what I'm doing is trying to use a sort of high speed approach to essentially determine where and what the potential exploits are. So this is the part where I got a lot of pushback. Because I'm using it to sort of essentially hack itself, which is the why it works so well. I'm doing basically a whole ton of sort of self hacks, if you will, in real time as the data flows to and from the LLM. Now that's great, but it turns out that you could potentially use that to actually exploit other people's LLMs using the exact same approach which it did occur to me. I'm not gonna lie, but that's that's the problem with most of this kind of security-based work. The things that you use to secure are generally the same things you use to exploit. So regardless, be careful. But the approach is really interesting. So this approach using the midstreamer component can be used for all kinds of really interesting applications. So, for example, because I'm able to do real-time analysis of the stream of information, let's say I'm doing a real-time analysis of the audio stream or the video stream coming, and I can then determine things like what the intent, what might be said, happy, sad, sort of different elements before the session is done. So what a lot of times these systems that use RAG and other approaches will basically wait until you've finished the request, then it'll come back and say something like, well, here's your response, or here's the tools I'm using, or I'm doing some deep research. Now, the benefit to this is I don't have to wait. I can kind of see what's happening during the process, which works great for things like securing it. I can see the exploit before the system has a chance to invoke a tool, for example, or understand what the request even needs to be. And so that gives me, again, a much faster sort of head start on some of the activities. Now, I've also included in the implementation the ability to use the lean what I'm calling lean agentic. And now what that does, which is kind of interesting, is it allows me to do formal mathematical proofs, basically on a port of the Lean 4 system, for those who are familiar with that. So basically what that's doing is it's creating sort of novel mathematical structures, equations and other things that basically help it understand the potential of how and where the system can be vulnerable using just basic or not so basic math, which is kind of cool. Once I find a potential vulnerability, I cryptographically sign it using the same approach that we were using in the AI agentic payment system that we released a few weeks ago. And that essentially, in that scenario, we're cryptographically defining where and how you can sort of authorize the system to make payments. So in that scenario, but it would be like, I've got $500 and I don't want to spend more than that to go on a trip or something, or you've been authorized to spend that on a stock. Now, I'm using the exact same approach, but differently. I'm using that now to verify where and how these potential exploits are potentially invoked or discovered. Then once discovered and proven, then I'm cryptographically signing it as a kind of attestation or a kind of provenance of where and how that became to be and how and what was used to discover it, right? So there's all these things happening really, really quickly to sort of look at, finding, discovering, and hopefully fixing these types of exploits. Now, once you've done that and you're doing it potentially millions of times every second, you need a mechanism to validate that. And that's where the cryptographic signing comes into play. So back to the sort of overall, what you're seeing here is a kind of a step-by-step process that I've been going through to, I'm vibing this stuff, right? I'm creating it just because I can. And so you're seeing kind of my vibing process. The discovery of one thing leads to the discovery and practical application of another. And what I did with the midstreamer, this is actually something I created not initially as a NPM, but as a Python library about 9 months ago. So what I'm doing now is kind of going back a little bit to the things I built, several months ago, and then sort of re-investigating what I can do with it now. And what's interesting when I look at like where I am today and where I was 9 months ago, you can really see the difference in terms of the ability for these systems to build much more capable systems now. And these systems were pretty capable 9 months ago. 9 months ago, but now it's almost like we can take and amplify all these systems. And you can take an existing Python library, for example. I think Nick was showing me something he was working on earlier with LLM Guard, and basically just port it. Say, point at this and say, rebuild the entire Llama, XYZ or LLM Guard, and build it me in this different language, in Rust or Julia or whatever the language you want to go build it in. And it'll essentially use the old library package and then sort of implement it in this new format, which is really cool. It's particularly cool for things like Rust, which has a sort of inherently faster execution. So in essence, you can just take a really popular Python library that's essentially slow and say, rebuild it for me in Rust, and suddenly you get 100 times, faster response. So I'm doing that essentially to my own libraries, and that's what I did here with this midstreamer library. I just took one that I originally built. I think it was built in. This was actually one of my first Rust projects that I did earlier this year. And oh, by the way, I am relatively new to Rust. I've become pretty good at it, but before this year, I didn't really play much with Rust at all. It was kind of a newfound fascination for me. For a lot of these reasons, it's fast, it's secure, it handles memory really well, that sort of thing. So you're seeing a lot of my tooling and sort of interconnected things, and I try to combine each tool in new and novel ways. One more thing I want to mention before we move on is I did push the Agent DB package, which has become quite popular over the last literally week since I published it. And I swear, I'm not trying to brag about my downloads here, and they're all coming from Cloudflow anyway, just to be honest with you. But I've now completely replaced the reasoning bank and memory capabilities both within Agentic Flow and Cloudflow to now use AgentDB. And again, for those who aren't familiar, AgentDB is just a really fast memory and learning system that uses essentially a kind of vector similarity. So natural sort of language to describe the similarity of things that are stored, and then a kind of reasoning structure within it. Like everything else I'm doing, it's hyper fast and super optimized and so on. You can see I've added some different options. One thing you might want to check out for those who are interested in exploring interesting rabbit holes is the nightly learner. And it's basically a dream state that I've devised for the system. So every night I can run on like a cron job or whatever, an action that the system will review everything that's been done during the day, and then it basically I don't want to say dreams, but it kind of sort of dreams. And then it looks and then it discovers sort of what worked and what doesn't, and then creates a new structure that allows it to operate even better going forward. So the one thing you're going to notice when you use any of these systems, like reasoning banks and these other sort of wild things that we've been building over the last couple of weeks, is they get better with time. So the first time you use it, you're going to be like, well, I don't see any difference. And the second time, maybe a little slight difference, but nothing noticeable. But after a day or two, you're going to start noticing that the system actually performs better, avoids sort of recurring problems and errors that you might see frequently. So one thing you may want to consider doing with a lot of these systems that I'm showing you is basically pointing your favorite coding system at it and say pre-train. You know, if you're looking to improve your XYZ application, just tell it to basically do an analysis of it and then to sort of use the reasoning bank to create a kind of causal pattern of some sort. And usually if it'll figure it all out because these systems at this point are generally pretty good at kind of following the instructions that are in the CLI and underlying code. So lots and lots of tools for you to play with. Learning, I've been a mild obsession with sort of non-ML based learning, and you can try all that stuff as well. You see, I've got I think 10 new tools that I've included. So depending on what you're trying to learn and how you're trying to learn, these are ones you can play with. I have a
Is
tendency to
there a
go
way
towards.
to share the memories or otherwise distribute them across different code spaces?
Yeah, sharding. So yes, there's a few different ways you
Not
can.
distribute. So I snapshot the learnings from something I did in my environment, let's say while developing Ducky, and then have someone else be able to pick up that Ducky development learning, fork the Ducky repo, and then continue learning in whatever direction they take it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I actually did that as well. And most of the stuff you're going to see here is actually in not this one. Where did I put it? Agentic.
Well,
Too many repos to remember. But I pre-trained a bunch of models or a bunch of like database files, and then I made those available. So in where the heck did I put it? And I gotta find where I put. That's my biggest problem is remembering where the heck I put the stuff. But
Hey,
basically,
Jed. Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, Ruben. This is Dave.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
had a question for Jed. Are you saying, Jed, that like if I was to fork Ducky um, and start using it, then the memories that I generate would be contributed to the memories that you generate as a whole, or are they?
much the same way machine learning models have a series of weights, and the weights can be checkpointed and then additional weights trained on top of it. I'm assuming this memory system acts in a similar way, maybe with a different mechanism. But the idea then is that the memory from a given checkpointed state can then be extended along different lines of thought in parallel. It's I haven't yet considered joining the learnings back together, but at a minimum, being able to explore from a specific point in time different paths and learn in that way could theoretically help someone adopting a code base ext intelligently extend it further, or at the very least build on top of the conclusions drawn from the architectural decisions that were made.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like a time warp
Being
type, backup or parametric modeling where you can actually go back in time and then make a change, but then apply forward all the other stuff. That's great. That's
it's
amazing.
well, it's only a thought. I'm unclear how to make it a reality.
Hi guys, can you hear us
Hey,
from Paris?
yeah, good to see you.
Hi, nice to see you all. So this is the Agentic France chapter launch. We're super happy to join you on the weekly live stream. So, Rav, if you want to introduce Agentics.org.
All right, we're gonna change it up this week, and I'm not gonna embarrass myself with my high school French. So you're going to get it. You're gonna get me unfiltered in English today. So yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with the Agentics Foundation and the AI Hackerspace, we're doing a bit of a different structure today. You might have heard me ranting and raving about my latest developments. We do a lot of sort of showing and telling on this. This is the sort of opportunity to basically show what you've built every week. But we are an organization dedicated to the broader adoption of agentic AI. And what that means for us is a platform and a community dedicated to agentic engineering. And the first and most important question that a lot of folks will ask in agentic engineering is what is it and what does it mean? And we see this as a kind of spectrum. On one side, you've got this concept of vibe coding, and a lot of what I've just been, if you tuned in earlier, hearing me describe is actually my vibe coding. This is me discovering the things that I didn't know. And this has a tendency to use a sort of human-driven feedback loop. That means that I'm going back and forth to see and understand how it works, what problems there are, and how I can kind of connect the dots. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got this idea of agentic engineering. And this is meant to be more of a process. This is meant to be structured. It's meant to be an environment that's geared towards the idea of not just discovering, but to implement a particular plan to get to a particular output or outcome. So our organization is dedicated to making that idea of a sort of structured approach to agentic engineering essentially a profession, and it's something where we can have best practices, share ideas, build things in a common and consistent way. So well, a lot of what we do is geared towards the idea of sharing of what we discover, just much like we heard Jed and David and others sort of describing earlier. The big part of it is doing these kind of meetups that you're probably at right now or tuning into the show as you see it right now. And then there's R&D. We share a lot of the code. So we have a number of different code bases. You can check out the community page and community parts of our application and website where you can learn and become more acquainted with the sort of elements of agentic engineering, live workshops like what you're on, regional chapters. We heard Dragon and others having events this week. So lots of events happening. We're doing events all over the world and with our friends at 42. Thank you for providing us the space, especially for the activities happening in Paris today. I'm improvising, as you could tell. I wasn't fully sure what you wanted to see today. So let me pause for a moment. Is this helpful? Does this all make sense so far?
Est-ce que c'est utile? Ouais, alors, it is useful, Rav. So I want to emphasize the fact that this is non-profit, that we aim to help people understand agentics with free training, now also with certifications, right? With different level of certification from entry level to professional. And talking about professional, I think you will agree with me, Ruth, to say that the Agentic Foundation is trying to push the envelope, is trying to get to the cutting edge of what we can do with agentics. And Ruv, you demonstrate this every day with your code, with your posts, and also with these live streams. We have weekly live streams on Thursday and Friday when Ruv shows us how far this could go. So I think this is one of the value of the Agentic Foundation is the cutting edge element. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think a big part of what we're trying to do isn't just tell, but show and share. And we're all learning, and this is a brand new space. So I think the biggest part of these events, especially what you're experiencing right now with you're sort of tuning into part of our live cast, is how we can learn from each other. And that's a key part of the process. And when you look at AI, and you think about AI, one of the biggest challenges that with AI is the lack of sort of the human element, if you will. AI doesn't recreate the relationship between people. It doesn't. So we're trying to keep that part of the equation in place.
So what I would like to do now is a little bit of interaction between the crowd in Paris and the crowd in everywhere in the world, in fact. Huh? So in Paris, if you don't mind saying hello to everyone and reciprocate, guys, online, hi, thanks. And it's so cool to kind of, unite everybody on that moment.
Hey.
Bonjour, Paris!
Voilà.
Bonjour.
Welcome. Salut, bonjour.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we're super happy to launch this today officially. I know that Tokyo is coming next. I know Dubai is coming as well. It's growing, like it's spectacular, the growth of the agentic. So yes, please join these live streams on Thursdays, on Fridays, so you can meet with the rest of the group and share. Thank you so much, guys, for your time.
Well, we really appreciate you putting all this together, and again, a big thank you to the 42 team for all that they've done. I think we just had their event in Abu Dhabi earlier this week, also at 42. So definitely appreciate all the work and effort and support that we're getting.
Thank you, Rob. So we'll leave you to that. Wish you next week. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Uh,
Okay.
All right. That was totally improvised, as you could probably tell. But Rob did give me a heads up 10 minutes before the start that was going to happen. I just anyway, a good thing I'm good at improvising. So all right, we've got some presentations lined up. I don't know if our friends from Ireland have made it. Dipple, did you see?
So I don't see Comburn, but we have Mondeep Chakravarti.
All right. Manjweep, you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, excited to. So for those who don't know Manjweep, as a quick introduction, he's been one of our go-tos in London, and has been really involved in getting our London activities off the ground, which I would say is probably one of our, if not the most popular location we probably have in terms of our meetups at this point. And you're working on all kinds of interesting and creative things. So let's take it away.
Nice one. I got probably 5 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
Do
This
your
is
thing.
basically sharing one of my learning journeys overnight based on what Dragan has done for his agentic engineering. So I'm going to just walk you through the journey. Sharing my screen. I have only one screen, so I'm going to share the desktop if that's okay. Hopefully you can see my screen. So I'm going to just reposition some of the windows so at least things are visible for me. There we go. And move this down as well a bit. Okay. So it started with, so Dragan, you are on the call, right? As well. So feel free
Yes,
to
I'm
step in.
here. Yes.
Sure. So Dragan has created a code base. So this is his, I'll put everything on the chat later on, but this is about agentic quality engineering. So I created a notebook from it because I just wanted to understand. So basically what this is about: AI-powered test automation solution, 17 specialized agents, 34 QE skills, and it uses a host of algorithms to do its job. Now, this is all I knew. So like I wanted to really, my philosophy is building is the new talking and learn by doing. So I said, all right, let me see what I can do. So help me learn this code base by creating something. And that was my first prompt in Cloud Code. So I went through a bit of to and fro discussions, and at the end of this journey, and I'm just going to quickly scroll through it, talks about how the base agent works. Basically, there's a base agent, and then how various coordination activities happen. And it wrote a lot of code, and it created an agent for me called Code Complexity Analyzer Agent. Now that agent, as the name suggests, would obviously look into a code base and perform how complex the code base is, how manageable is it testable, etc., etc. And without going through, check the code into GitHub, and that is now here. So this was obviously Dragon's code base, and I have forked it, and I've been working on my code base here, and there it is. So this agent is effectively this one. So it's a TypeScript file, does a lot of stuff here, won't go into detail. So then what I did was I used it to analyze some of the code bases. So maybe worth checking is, this is an open source code base about vehicle tracking. So effectively GPS tracking and all of that stuff. And they have got a GitHub repo. So I basically pointed that agent to this code base and said, do a bit of analysis. And it did do something which would look something like here. If I go back and I come back here to this particular thing called tracker, which I should see it somewhere here. Probably it's this one. And it gives a variety of, say, it detects issues, critical, comes back with some kind of, cyclomatic complexity, cognitive complexity, and analyzes a series of files and gives not just what the issues are, but what are the recommendations to fix it. Then yesterday, I think during the live coding, when you were talking us through the midstream bit, I was basically saying, let me do the same thing on midstream as well, right? The code base. So I took your code base as well, Roof, and then basically did the same. So forked it, and then I created that here, which is, so maybe we'll spend 2 minutes on that now. And I would welcome like views on what you think. But here, for example, I looked at all the branches of the code base. So there are 4 branches, I think. AI, DMS, one is, and it does come across a view. So again, this is public, we'll share. But I probably put this on the chat window just for reference. Chat, and then maybe throw it to open to conversations. So what there it is, and then it goes about like what are the issues. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if any of this is hallucination or not. But I think I read a few of them and kind of seem to make sense. But then I'll pause here. But Dragon, over to you if you want to just call on the bigger picture and your views of how you perceive this particular agent. So over to you.
This agent is, out of my league. So for the code complexity, things, I would ask someone, maybe Ruv or someone from more with the engineering background to take a look at them. But what I can say is I would like to thank Mondvip for contributing this agent to the quality engineering fleet, as his suggested agent was merged to the repo yesterday with the new release. And Mondvip also used this agent to analyze code complexity in the agentic QA fleet itself and reported that as an issue. And I used his report also and double checked with other agents in the fleet to see if it does make sense, and it really did make sense, and some of the fixes were implemented yesterday. So thank you, Mondvip, for your contribution to the fleet.
No worries. So I guess that's all I had to show today. So happy kind of, and if you want to spend a couple of minutes to discuss.
Let's jump back to one of the complexity analyzers for a moment. I found that really interesting because you know what this speaks to what I was talking about earlier. Midstream was something I built 9 months ago. And then I took a look at it and said, how can I improve it and use it in combination with some of the things I built over the last few weeks. And so if you scroll up slightly, you'll see that there's this security check system. That actually is the most recent thing that I've built for the platform, right? And so what's interesting is in the sort of view that we see here, the stuff that I've built most recently is by far, according to this anyway, the most complex of the things that I'm building. And I say I probably need to say we or the agents or the whatever swarm is building. But I think it acts as a kind of proof that the things that we're building now are substantially more complex than the things that we were building even a few months ago, right? In this scenario anyway. Interesting tool, and Dragon, really nice work on this. I'm really impressed with what you've been building and how it's all been coming together. We got to figure out how to integrate this and some of the stuff that I'm doing and get you a few more downloads.
Great. Let's see how to do that. And I'm as we are speaking, I'm preparing the next release that will finalize the implementation of AgentDB memory and learning systems. So let's see how that will help a whole fleet to improve, because I already see some entries in the memory DB, some patterns are being captured. So I hope the whole system will learn to improve itself.
It seems to be. It seems to be getting better. Again, anecdotally, in the things that I'm doing, but it does appear to work.
Yeah, that's my experience also.
Hey,
Last
Mondvik,
point, I think it's maybe rough around the edges. Sorry, David. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So is this just analyzing the code complexity for you, or and then how do you interpret the output that is showing, from the QE?
So I'll answer the first question here. So obviously, I'm relying on some of the measures. Like I was reading up a little bit, so I'm not an expert here, but I understand the routes through the code base. So how many routes there are? Is it testable, etc. So the whole is it called cyclomatic analysis or something? Cyclomatic complexity. So apparently, a score above 50 is really not good or something like that. So I was doing a bit of reading around that. So it applies some of those algorithms. So that is how, what I have done is that I've said, here is the code base, here is the agent, use this agent to analyze this code base. So someone asked that question on the chat, but that's what all I did in my prompt in Claude. I've been using increasingly Claude Code on the web AI. All I say, use this agent to test this code base once the agent is in. In terms of interpretation, I think it's probably beyond my understanding. So this is where I think this community's inputs to see, is this, I'm pretty sure there's some things are rough around the edges here, right? So I think the intent is like, does it make sense? I guess this is the thought around it. How can it be improved? I think that is the feedback. We should help Dragan.
Yeah,
It's funny.
maybe Dragon can sort of give us some feedback. So how do you interpret, a cyclomatic complexity score?
I'll tell you one thing.
Oh, yeah.
You see it said the quality was 0, but it's interpreting it for human consumption, right? So the parts of this, and actually this speaks to Manjweep a little bit as well, in this idea that it's beyond my capability to understand, is a common problem with a lot of the things these systems are starting to build. So when you see the quality of it says 0 out of 100, that is obviously subjective to a developer looking at the system and being able to quickly and easily take the code and basically run with it without any assistance from an AI, right? And so the challenge that we have in these systems is, are we building these systems for consumption by people, or are we building these systems for consumption by AI? So if it's everything I'm building is actually built not for the take it and run with it developer, but for the point your swarm at it and make it better, right? And in that scenario, this quality metric has zero meaning, because it's saying that the developer can't understand it because it's too complicated.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going here, right? Because, like, for example, that I'm a big proponent of Rust, and I have an open source project that's very big in Rust. And I actually was meeting with my team this week, and I asked them, are you guys using AI, agentic engineering and AI to develop, to write Rust these days? And they said, yeah, funnily enough, one of the members, the external contributors, contributed a feature completely written in Rust, and it was actually 100%, agentic developed, vibe coded. And they said when they reviewed it, they said that, and my team is very hardcore Rust, but they write most of their Rust code by hand. And they're like, yeah, we reviewed it, and they were kind of laughing about it because they're like, oh, they could tell that it wasn't written by a human. So, an agent or an agentic system wrote the code, and humans were interpreting the code, and the humans knew immediately, which is the scenario you're talking about, right? The humans knew immediately that it wasn't Rust code written by a human. It was Rust code written by an AI system. And they kind of laughed about it. They said, it didn't follow all the Rust best practices, and it was very repetitive, and it got the job done. But, if they had run it through this tool, I'm wondering how it would have scored out,
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I could have a few things to say about complexity, because I spent like one of the previous lives like doing the code quality, and not actually QA, but the actual code quality. So the most important metric there, it's basically the long-term life of the project, right? Because most of the projects, they go at very high speed initially, because like infinite speed, right? When you have 0 lines of code, and then you keep accumulating technical debt, and at some point it's impossible to change. You change something and you broke something else. So, and unfortunately with this agentic development, we don't have the luxury, we don't have any historical data like on the like long-lived projects, right? You need, I don't know, 2-3 years of the project to live to actually even collect it. Yeah, but I still kind of have a gut feeling that the cyclomatic complexity and all traditional metrics, they still have relevance to agentic development. Like, so you probably want to keep it down. And another thing I noticed, actually, I spent like a few weeks ago, I spent forever. It was actually system written by LLMs, and the LLM, the Claude Code, decided to actually, like, I needed to work it like in a different way. It decided to basically change it so it works basically the old way and the new way, and it took like forever. But then I realized like the better, like, and we don't have it with people, that luxury, but with LLMs, you can just tell them like scrape whatever you have right now, like whatever the module, right? And just write a new one from scratch, but make it different, like given that. So it's like we just need to see like get historical data and stuff. But the bottom line, I think the complexity measure, like code duplication and sort of like the how much tangle in the classes, I don't think they still valid as the
Right. Yeah. I think it's interesting, Vlad
Yeah.
and Ruben, right, and Dragon and Montveep, is that
Yeah.
I think there's a dynamic. We all know there's this dynamic that exists where, you have hardcore traditional engineers handwriting code, and they, and then you have AI swarms writing code, and in the industry, there's this dynamic between that, and so I think it's potentially interesting that you have a way now of assessing AI generated code. If you know that a human team is going to have to take that code and maintain it over a long lifespan, it's great to have a tool that can assess that very quickly or continuously and score it out and say, yeah, this is going to be relatively difficult for a human team to develop and maintain long term, because it's, this is an interesting way to do that.
It doesn't have to
I
be human team. It could be like a genic team, because lots of like these
True.
metrics, they come from how much like tangled mess your code is like. So if you change like a line somewhere, like what's gonna break, like. So if the code is very nicely compartmentalized and modularized, then apparently, and it like has very strict interfaces, then changing the code internally doesn't matter for like outside world, basically, right? And
Yeah. And so what I'm saying is, Vlad, is that this might actually be a way for the Agentic Foundation to promote a way to say, hey, if there's this pressure between human teams and AI coding teams, there's a way to evaluate and as the code is coming in or being handed off, right? It could be a good methodology to apply.
Yeah. But it would be interesting if you bring more metrics, and a good place to fish them out from is the old Sonar Cube. It used to be like open source. There are metrics like the class cohesions, like so if like you have a sort of cluster of classes and they talk to each other, like it's basically how big you like basically interdependencies between your classes, basically, or functions. Because if you have like 500 classes talk to, like each class talks to another 500, it's a tangled mess. But if they form like a tight clusters and like very like narrow interfaces to the other clusters, then it means you can re-engineer that group without affecting the things.
Yeah, I agree. It's
That's
awesome.
the whole bottom line. It's basically having the structure in the classes, and the individual code in the quality world. It doesn't actually matter like what the individual code is like, because you can rewrite in Rust and Java and everything, and it's as long as the sort of defined interfaces and the rest of the world can talk to you still like in the same way. That's the most important thing.
So I'm saying, Ruben, this might be a way for the Agentic Foundation to popularize this kind of concept, right? To help lower the argument between human and agentic coding.
Yeah, the reality is, to your point, handcrafted code is better in terms of readability, and there's a tendency for AI to take the shortest path or least resistance, right, to getting a problem solved, which means that it might not review all the things that already exist and say, let's reuse that. And so when I devise that AgentDB structure, what I'm really trying to do is have a similarity that says, if you've already done something, go use that. Don't go and reinvent the wheel. So oftentimes the first thing you see when you develop, and we see a new person developing these agentic applications, there's a tendency for a lot of redundancy in the things that are creating, because the bots, if you will, aren't looking at everything else. It's basically saying, here's what I kind of see within my very narrow perspective of what I need to build right now. And this is based on what I see, the quickest way to get that solved, which is not necessarily the optimal way to get that solved. Back to why you have a spec. So when you're looking, so to the person who built the Rust application, my guess, and when you say he vibed it, was basically a kind of iterative back and forth between, I need this thing built, I'm going to build it, I'm going to test it, I'm going to fix it until it works. Now it works, great, it solved my problem. A spec basically says, follow the spec. Only do the things that are explicitly defined within that spec, And if you have to build something that already exists, refer to the spec. And that makes it that improves it, but doesn't fix it. The last part was basically having that interconnected relationship of all the things that were built while it was doing all those things earlier to get you to this point, so we can refer to that right before it does anything it's about to do. And that's what that kind of memory system is intended to solve. But the last thing I'm going to say, and I sound like a broken record, these systems are built beyond, like most of these things I'm building, I don't even know how they work. Like, and I'm not trying to pretend like I know everything about everything. I'm just trying to discover how far I can push the boundary. But, and that's the challenge we have. Most of us are not capable of understanding these complex mathematical equations that are being created on the fly. Like I can't explain to you how the orthogonal sublinear equations work within the sublinear system. I actually have no idea. All I know is they seem to work, which is a bad answer. Nolan, I think is on. You got a demo you want to give us? Excited to see it.
Yeah. How's it going, everyone? Do I have screen sharing?
You should. Yeah, you should be good to go.
Okay.
And Nolan, you're in Toronto. You're in Toronto, right?
Yeah, Blue Mountains. I think I have to change my settings here. One sec.
Just for anyone that wants to, I was curious. The mountains in Ontario aren't exactly mountains. They're more of a decent sized hill.
I just have to, yeah, correct. I just have to restart Zoom. Sorry, be right back.
Yeah,
I would have assumed that anybody who uses the word mountain for Canada is like New Zealand. It's like the real mountains.
Well, we have real mountains. Anyone from the West Coast will tell you that. And yeah, actually parts of the East Coast, Laurentians, but just not Ontario.
While we wait for Noah to come back, what other uses has anyone found for Claude Code that may not necessarily have to do with programming?
Research.
Oh, that's what I do is I put Claude Code pointed at my my Obsidian vault, and it immediately recognizes it as a log of my activities and technical notes, and summarizes it. And I can manipulate it or have it generate a Python script that manipulates it. It's totally awesome.
Yeah, I just use Obsidian as well with MS Amplifier, which is another set of agents that's on top of Claude Code, and I blew out all my Opus credits in a day, a week's worth doing research. It was great.
Nice.
It's more like a vibe researching than vibe coding.
Yeah,
and
I
then
think
this last week, I did a 2-day Nelson Norman group accelerating research with AI course, and yeah, it was all about that. It was great. It was and the Obsidian is just fantastic.
Yeah. I actually use Claude Code a lot to create slide presentations because I use the latex package called Beamer for the to make slides.
I think
then the Claude Code generates like very nice ones.
Yeah, Canva is very good though. If you've used the endpoint of Canva in ChatGPT subscription, the MCP tool, it really creates solid presentations.
Yeah, but I use a lot of Matten. I mean, for me, the LaTeX is like the thing basically because anything else is, it's mostly like fluff.
All right, Nolan, I think you're back. You're sharing.
Yeah,
All
can I
right.
see it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this is a bit of a moonshot idea that came to me over the last couple weeks in trying to solve some RAG problems with this project I'm working on, and it led me down a complete rabbit hole over the last week. So one of the problems we were having with RAG in the context window led us to explore some papers around sort of this hyperlinking concept where the agent could use tools to basically know the structure of something, sort of like the index, much like a website is hyperlinked, but then be able to traverse down into those routes to get additional context. So rather than like bloating the context window, we could sort of programmatically build it up and allow the tool to navigate the RAG structure. I then started thinking about LLMs.txt, which I was kind of unfamiliar with in terms of the specification up until this past week, and I started thinking about looking at its specification and thinking about these concepts at work around so the interoperability between agents and other systems out there. Now the web is we all know what HTML markup does for humans and how it's presented, but now we have a much sort of richer, let's call it canvas, that agents can use. So we want to preserve the human aspect of the web and SEO and the way that we HTML markup serves us as website viewers. But now I think we have the ability to build on concepts like sitemap.xml, robots.txt, and now emerging concepts like LLMs.txt to basically provide this like semantic layer, discovery layer for agents to discover and operate against. So we have emerging protocols, like companies have an HTTP website, they might be spinning up MCP servers, they might be spinning up agentic commerce protocols for agentic transactions, but there's no sort of single layer for an agent to understand what the availability and the capabilities of those tools. So I'm proposing this sort of extension of LLMs.txt in more of a YAML format, which I'll just pull it up here, which aims to provide enhance the HTML with markup so that websites become both readable for machines and humans alike. So that basically means that for every corresponding HTML view that I guess this would be configurable depending on the publisher, but there would be for every single HTML view, there'd be a corresponding markup file. So, these billion-dollar AI companies are going out and scraping everyone's content. And really, there's no attribution being given to any of the publishers. So those companies are benefiting while publishers don't get that attribution. But and I think this isn't aiming to sort of gatekeep content, but I think it's meant to sort of address that challenge in that publishers can control the sort of semantic discovery of their content through the various sort of aspects of this specification with chunking out descriptors, but also allow the agents to discover the capabilities of these services. So so we've got the agentic commerce protocol. How does an agent know that a particular website actually has those capabilities? So imagine the crawler goes to the website, reads this LLMs.txt, sees in the protocol section. Actually, I don't have a protocol listed here. Just go here for a second. Sees in the protocol section of the YAML that there's an MCP endpoint or there's an agentic commerce endpoint. So dynamically, that crawler could then take action through that routing mechanism to that service and that protocol.
So Nolan, we've been doing quite a bit of work with what we've been describing as robots or agentic robots.txt, right? Using the more traditional robots TXT. Now, my question, and this is something we debated while we're basically trying to solve the same problem, is why reinvent the wheel? Robots.txt does everything you just described and is adopted by every website that's ever been made. So right, that's always been my struggle with the LLM text and the agents and all these other sort of structures. It's almost like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. And I'm not sure, like conceptually what you're describing makes a lot of sense, right? Create a semantic structure for the web to discover things and understand how to interact with it. But again, it already exists.
So I think, yeah, you're not wrong. And part of what I'm trying to do is to not reinvent the wheel. So I think I need to spend more time looking at robots.txt. But I think there's sort of other aspects missing that this aims to provide. Um,
Nolan, would your system help with AEO and LLM recommendations?
Say again, Matt?
Would your system help with? So there's SEO, and now what they're calling AEO, which is more the LLM making recommendations in regards to the search. And would your system help with AEO and those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an aspect of it, Matt. With the sort of tagging functionality of the HTML, it gives instead of the crawler or the scraper having, or the agent having to ingest the full HTML and then sort of figure out how to use it, the corresponding LLM.md files for each sort of human readable view provides a markdown version, which I think strips away the fat, to allow the machines to let's call it operate more effectively. Just from a pure scraping perspective, the number of tokens that are required to scrape and get this vision page, is 21,000 tokens. But with an AR, like let's call it ARW, like whatever this like changes to, with that enable and those machine views available, it's down to 548 tokens. So there's an optimization to be had there, that allows it's less consumption from a scraping perspective. It's less bandwidth usage potentially on the publisher side, because these scrapers just go out and use up the resources. But you can see, even just from a scraping perspective, using different models, how more cost effective this approach would be if these views were available to the scrapers and the
And
agent.
there's one more point. This thing will basically, what you say, reduce the cost of energy also. So like LLM requires energy to process the tokens, right?
Yeah.
So with the help of this scraping idea, it will basically remove the fluff and create a systematic way agent can analyze or ingest what you say, a website, and we can add more of securities also.
Yeah.
Well, for those who are interested, we do have a working group dedicated to this very topic at the Agentics Foundation, which it was the Agentic robots, which would fit what you're describing absolutely perfectly. I love the direction you're going. The one thing I'm going to point out, is YAML doesn't work particularly well for this, given the nature of indents and blank space, right? So if you're going to go down a text-based route, you should have some form of structure that doesn't require indentation or blank space. And so for that reason, the approach that I previously implemented uses TOML, which is a meta semantic structure without the verbosity of JSON. So just keep that in mind. Because there's a tendency for these systems to strip out white space when miniaturized, I guess you'd say, which will break your text file every time.
Hey, I have a question about that. I just came across something today. I'm gonna post it in the chat. There is a format called Toon, and it's the whole purpose of the format is to minimize usage of token. It just to represent like if you can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's the semantic or the symbolic structures that we can use as well, and there's all kinds of.
Anybody use Toon? I just came across today, and it looks interesting.
No,
I haven't.
No, I've never heard of it. This is one of the.
It's one of the roof things that was created 3 weeks ago, and it has 7,000 stars on GitHub. Like
it's
So just to get like,
models
appreciate the feedback. Sorry, Jed. Go ahead.
Most models have been trained on the likes of XML, Markdown, YAML, JSON, and so on. So try doing a needle in a haystack type eval using JSON, Tune, YAML, TOML, and so on to see how they work for your flows. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's definitely more token efficient, especially if you're using on-prem models with lower context windows.
Okay.
This is my issue that I have with these types of things, Nolan, is that there's always this religious discussion about what file format you should use. It's just like literally as soon as you start talking about robots.txt or LLM.txt or agents.txt, everybody has an opinion about whether it's TOML or YAML or text or XML or JSON or whatever. And then the other concern I have is that these aren't legally binding like files, right? They're completely voluntary protocols that you have to opt into. Otherwise, you won't benefit from them. And I get why you're doing the cost analysis to show why, and that helps to drive adoption, but they're totally voluntary. Nobody, like if I write a scraper, I don't care about robots.txt ever. I'm going to ignore it,
Yeah.
and this is the big concern I have about these in general.
That's not very ethical scraping, David.
You and me and 2 other billion people writing scrapers, dude. I get it. It's not ethical,
Well,
but
I think that's the conundrum. But look at like Anthropic. They got sued for $3 billion because they stole this content and trained the model.
yeah,
So
every foundational model vendor falls into that, and they literally, they've all admitted that all of their models have been trained on all of the data that has been available on the internet. They're all trained on all of that data, and none of them have attributed, anything to any of that data. So they all deserve to be fined $5 billion.
So like this doesn't aim to. I don't think that's the core thing that I'm attempting to do with this. I'm more interested in the, as more agents emerge and protocols emerge, I'm more interested in how the web as a discovery layer evolves to support that interoperability. And that's where I think, robots.txt, sitemaps.xml, those are the kind of like boring primitives of the web, but they are essential if you want to have high, ranking and discoverability from an SEO and a ranking perspective.
The one thing to keep in mind is robots.txt, which is the hallmark of the agents, related sort of access to your site, is opt out, right? So if you don't put a robots.txt in your website, Google just assumes it can do whatever it wants and scrape whatever it wants from your website. And generally speaking, when you put a robot.txt in, you're only putting it there to tell it what it shouldn't do or look at, right? So now that we've got this kind of agentic web sort of appearing, most of the major bots, whether ethical or unethical, have the ability to see those files. So now the mechanism you're likely going to use to invoke any other secondary specification is what they're already looking for, right? So that would probably be the sitemap.xml, and included in the sitemap XML might be your text file, and then that's going to be found. And that's also the basis of any kind of prompt injection as well. If you're looking to take advantage of automated agent-based access to your site, that's how you exploit those agents. So you can exploit those for good. Here's how you should interact with my site. Here's my APIs. Here are my endpoints. Here's the anon key if you're an agent, and how to sort of secretly hit my site in the way that we want. And then there's the other people that are like, I don't care, perplexity for the most part, and we're going to do whatever we want, and we're going to grow as fast as we can. And worst case scenario, that we're going to get sued, and we'll deal with that, raise another round of funding. And that's the other end of the spectrum, right? The ask for forgiveness crew, the Uber of whatever. I think that we need to balance somewhere between, the Ubers and perplexities of the world, and people who don't want their sites to be shut down because there's 90% worthless AI scraping of it.
I think that the other part of this is, Reuven, is that everybody knows that agentic systems and agents, they all need data, massive amounts of data. And so all these tools, they don't want to honor any limitation in the amount of data that they can scrape. They, like you said, perplexity, they need data. If they voluntarily limit themselves, their answer quality will be reduced. I've gone through this with multiple startups. If you try to be a good citizen and try to have really healthy data, your answer quality is crap because you self-limited yourself. And they don't want to do that. They want to be the highest quality, highest precision answer on the planet. So they don't limit themselves, and they rip off everybody's data. So it's kind of a horrible, difficult situation. Everybody wants as much data as possible.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Well, Nolan, and you created this as an MPX, I take it?
Well, I do have some tooling that I'm building, which I'm hoping to release as an MPX, sort of like some validator tools, generator tools that can springboard this in a local development environment.
Cool. Well, let us know how it goes. This looks like a really interesting project you've embarked on.
Thanks. Appreciate the feedback. Rube, where can I find information about the working group and/or any of the work that you guys have done around this topic?
Yeah, so the easiest is if you actually let me share my screen quick. I'll just give you a quick little breakdown here. If I use my spec in our website that we built, and you can see it by going to robots.txt, which again is picked up. Then we're using the well-known structure. So for those who are familiar with well-known, it's also the basis of the SSE streamable MCP specification. So what's basically happening in ours is where I'm just basically telling you where to find stuff, right? So then there's an agent guide. The agent guide I guess I should probably call it agent.md now that that's a thing. A lot of the stuff that we've devised was devised before the llm.txt and the agent.mds and all that sort of stuff. And then several months later, they come up with the same idea, and it's it is what it is. And so they can go here, and I don't know if I have actually don't know if I included it in the site or not. We'll see it. No, I didn't. Oh, we're just maybe trying to download it. But anyway, that's available. Yeah, it's actually forcing a download on this one. Yeah, so this is how we're structuring it. We've got I don't know if I have the. I don't think I have. Oh, here it is. Agent.md text. This is how we did it. I much like you, I create a little parser and structure. It's TOML. Nothing particularly crazy here, other than I'm using the well-known. And that's also how the MCP, how I embedded the MCP in the website. So when you go to /MCP, I did a client-side, I think it's MCP, client-side implementation of, oh, no, it's not MCP. Anyway, a client-side MCP implementation that basically it will allow you to run a complete MCP server directly in your web browser without a server. And that's MCP tools. I should have just called it MCP. But basically, yeah, that's what we're doing there. This is a client-side implementation. So the MCP interface and the agent interface, they kind of fit together. So if you're gonna do one, you kind of have to do both. And this I did a little thing there, but yeah, you can check it out on our website.
Very
Anyway,
awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
yeah, cool stuff. We've got a few minutes left. Anybody have anything they want to discuss or demo or show? This is the open mic period portion of our AI.
Well, I can demo the updates, Rue.
That's
Updates
it.
that last week. So
Actually, yeah, I wanted to ask one question. So, like the AI models which we're using for vibe coding and all, they basically try to create what you say dummy variables or imaginary functions which doesn't exist during your vibe coding sessions. So how can we avoid or have a backtrack for that?
So creating things that are like placeholders or not fully implemented. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it's basically like when you're creating a project, you don't know what it's basically you're vibe coding it, so you don't know actually the idea and all. It's like you're going with the intuition. So during
Yeah,
that phase,
you should test-driven development, specifically the London School of Test-Driven Development. So what you're doing is you're creating a scaffolding before you build your application that guides the development of the application through a series of iterative back and forth tests.
Yeah.
So once you've got, and keep in mind, it could fake the tests. It could just do pass or whatever, and it'll pass. But what you want are tests that functionally illustrate what it needs to build, and then proves basically to itself that it built it in a way that's verifiable. And so it isn't just a pass.
Yeah.
So it tests.
okay.
And actually,
So I would also add, Ruben, that at the Agentic Foundation fundamentally believes in spec-driven development, and Spark was the first thing that you invented that really helped push us towards that. And part of that is to do test-driven development to the London School, like you said. And so we believe that you don't want to circumnavigate that. You want to create mocks. You want to create scaffolding and test first. So we believe that you don't want to find a way to not do that, right? And to not have like framework tests and mocks. It's important for us. It's part of our ethos and our belief system, and what we fundamentally believe is the way to do agentic engineering.
Yeah,
Yes.
David actually, Roof, I've been ping-ponging between like sort of very strict London TDD and just doing tests. So I always do tests like after like at least like 100 lines of code that should be covered by test, like always. And I find mocks sometimes useful, sometimes they not, because I found agents create mocks of things that like they believe how things actually work, and they would write the code against their beliefs. Like, so I actually now instruct a lot. I set up mini development environments like with in the actual cloud infrastructure and everything, just like for them to like play with.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Vlad. And actually, this would be a really awesome thing for Dragon to actually add to his QE system and his complexity analysis, is to say, very early on, all of the mocks that you've created, do they end up being real, usable, viable code, or are they hallucinatory, bogus bullshit in my code that is nothing?
My always been sort of thing against TDD and the cloud development. Amazon basically releases weekly, like or daily, right? So whatever specs you read or something, like if you try to write a mock, it might not be exactly the same how the things actually work. So they like, so any external systems, so like I always like just develop
unless there
against.
is like a contract testing between these third-party systems that you can
Yeah, but
rely,
any big
but
major
again,
like,
yeah.
Any big major cloud provider, they don't.
They don't care much, for the backward compatibility. That's what you want to say. Yeah.
No, there is a contract system how like they sort of happy paths supposed to work, right? But all the like edge cases and everything, it's never written anywhere. Like it's
right.
Or side effects, and
guys,
that's I always just test against. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. Bottom line, so you should have a test for like every 100 lines of codes. It should be covered, but my goal is usually like 80%. because sometimes like it's diminishing returns, right? So you get
right. Yeah,
right.
it's totally diminishing returns here. But I think what Dragon is doing is potentially he should have in his system potentially a way to evaluate whether those mock tests are going to contribute to the real positive outcome of the application.
Right. No, but I'm saying it's diminishing returns, but the first 80% of coverage, it's very easy to get and the returns are great. And then if you go like for the next like 80% of 80%, it's you spend the same time. And
hey guys, let's I think Scott's got a question quick or comment. Let's Scott, you still there?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to do a presentation. It might take like 5-ish minutes, but
And yeah, we also I think we also preempted Matt. Matt was going to give us a quick. So maybe we can just get Matt to show us, and then we'll jump to Scott. Just I don't want to forget about Matt here. He's been working on some things. He's still, and then all right.
Okay, so let me share my desktop. Yeah.
We've been working on is this the job board related activities we've been working on?
Well, since I have you, we have to make a decision on this and this, the design, but this is not what I want to share, but this is,
go.
You see the top and the bottom here. Basically, we have to make a decision on how we want to do the design.
You're sharing your desktop. We see,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, I'll try to do it. I want to share two things. I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. Okay. Took the little one to Girl Start. Girl Start is a tech STEM organization. She went to the table.
Matt. Sorry, I think we see your sort of files on your desktop. I don't think you're sharing the wrong window.
It's basically a homepage. It's homepage. It's not the app page.
You don't see that. You don't see the browser.
No. It's
just your files.
Okay, let me see what is going on.
A lot of screenshots there, Matt.
Yeah, I got to clean up that desktop.
Yeah, I got to clean it up. Yeah, well,
there's an agent for that, Matt. We'll get you set up.
Never ask a developer for his desktop to be cleaned and the tabs.
This is the danger of sharing your desktop, man. Everybody will jump on you and pound on you and say, "Dude, what's going on?"
Well, Macs are the worst for that. Like Macs, have a tendency to put everything in the who wants everything on a desktop? Stick it in like a random documents folder, like a normal person.
Exactly.
Old school.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so you can see this now.
Yes.
We see a picture of a document.
The only thing is now
you want.
Yeah, the binary document on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's a table.
So the only problem is you won't be able to see Super Whisper, and I'll just dive in. But I kind of wanted to show. So, backstory: went to a science fair. The kid liked this workshop. This is what I got at the workshop at the science fair. Building a bracelet of beads with the kid. What I discovered during the process is a way to improve this. How I got the idea to create an app is my girlfriend said, "Hey, we can do this at birthday parties. This would be neat at the birthday parties." I said, "Oh, aha. Okay." So fast forwarding, I took this screenshot, put it in the ChatGPT, told ChatGPT, create an app, create a lovable prompt for a workable app. I need the app to choose 3 colors. Colors are baseball team colors that have made the playoffs. And then I need 1 color for 0, 1 color for 1, and a breaking color so it's easy to read the binary numbers on the bracelet. I want the app to also allow the babies to type a word, and the word will create a shopping list, and the shopping list is will tell them the color of beads because I don't want to travel around with a lot of beads. Then also research and create 5 future games that can be played using the same beads and or the same components. Ultra think this, ask any questions you need. So while that's going, I'll switch over to my app. I'm speaking faster than I normally do, so it's kind of.
And we're you using codecs or straight just?
I'm using Super Whisper, so you can't.
No. I mean, like in terms of you're in ChatGPT, like
Yeah. So this is just straight ChatGPT. So now it's just dropped in the prompt, and
why not use the codecs option? Wouldn't that just build it in like GitHub and make it work? This way
Well,
you have to copy and paste, don't you?
well, yes, I'll try Codex next. But okay, so now I'll move back to uh, the app from last week. App from last week is this. I want to thank you, Ruve, Rob, Vlad, Alex, and David for the insights, and here's basically what I added. So from Alex, he mentioned Eli Gould. This is a EOS life score, doing what you love, people what you think. Ruve, this is agentic payments, the
Nice.
agentic payment system in here. Um, I still have to do a couple of cleanups here and there. AI settings, agentic flow. Some reason it said I need to rate the people I work with, whether I like them or not. So it'll kind of protect me some kind of ways. Time blocks. So
we gotta be nice.
Yeah, exactly. So theory of constraints. Here's the cards. Here's the emojis, Vlad, from discussion before. This is slide out the Vlad, the different calendar views. These aren't working yet, by the way, but some interesting views of data that I hadn't thought about other than the traditional calendar, which kind of leads me into a point where, at some point this is going to be over engineered, but I think it's right at a sweet spot. But
no,
that's where it is so far. That's all the payment system rule. That's the agentic and agentic flow in the back end. And next up, I'll be able to show it working. Moving back to the chat GPT. It created this, but I actually made it already. And what I made is, this is not the colors. What I discovered while doing this exercise with the kids right here, they struggled. They were creating ugly color palettes. They struggled to create I created mom for my bracelet. They struggled to create the words, and then they was taking a long time picking out the beads. So I wanted to help create something where it would be easy to choose the beads, choose the words, and choose the color palettes. And so this is what the output is at. You first choose what the colors are. So that way the person that is bringing the beads can just know what type of beads they bring. Then the baby can go and say, great. If that's the word she wants to spell, then that's a menu, that's a shopping list, the supplies.
Matt, are you teaching children to like speak in binary?
Well, so I took the little one to a Girl Start STEM workshop, and she was at a table. There was a lot of different tables, trees, paleontologists, biology, computers. For some reason, they think binary is I kind of get the connection.
That is both the craziest thing I've ever heard, but also the quite possibly the most interesting. You're literally programming children.
Yeah, dude, you're programming children to become droids, man. That's
exactly.
Once again,
exactly. So
that is awesome.
So there you go. That's pretty much it.
That's so cool, Matt. I was doing computer science unplugged with kids while I was working in the grammar school and later in summer camps, and they really learning concepts that they can later apply. Really helps them move.
Well, I'll tell you, they really enjoyed making the bracelets and just I don't know if they got the connection to binary and the bracelets, but and just and the part of it, what I wanted to share is my girlfriend mentioned, hey, we can do this at birthday parties, and I thought, aha, let's make an app, and then I figured out a way to improve that process by way of all the different inputs, and so yeah, kids love it. The girls were doing it. I liked it though. So
I love it. I love it. I think, and this is coming from a dad that introduced my daughter to programming when she was 5, and so if I known I could have done that before, I probably would have came up with some mechanism to teach her binary.
Yeah.
what actually on a side note, what's crazy about my daughter when she was about 1, I taught her how to use sign language. And so she couldn't speak yet, but she would use like the Rue form of sign language anyway, not the real American whatever sign language. Anyway,
Yeah,
she would
I did the same thing with my daughter. We taught her ASL.
yeah, well, I should have done that now. Now that I think of it, but I created my own form of and she picked it up right away.
Yeah.
And that actually what led to me sort of, kind of guiding her towards her programming, which she's become prolific. And yeah, some people are just susceptible or good at that kind of thing, I guess. Scott, we got a few minutes. Are you still there?
Yeah. Do you want me to save it for another time? It's a little
It's
chunky. Yeah, I can do it next week. But I guess the question I want to put on people's minds is, something I'm trying to do is like take feeds, turn them into a knowledge graph, and then start reasoning over those entities and connections in the knowledge graph. Does anybody have really good and built out platforms for doing that or libraries?
What kind of feeds? RSS?
Like RSS. To give you an example, like Fed data, like the Fed might be coming out with rate cuts, maybe full transcripts of like their statements, stuff like that, and digesting that original and very specific source data into content feeds that an agent
Scott,
can read about and
yeah.
start creating content.
Hey, Scott, I work a lot with knowledge graph. So the one lab project, it's not my project, but I contribute a lot to it. It's called LinkML. So just go linkml.io, and that's like sort of civilized way of working with knowledge graphs. Like, so you need to create a YAML file with the schema, and then it generates you Python classes. So they recently got the Rust generator. You can consume them in Rust, and all the LLM, all the like flagship LLMs, they actually know about LinkML. So you can say like build me a LinkML schema. It will build one for you. The only thing is they usually like 6 to 9 months behind what the project's doing. So some newer features not there.
Okay.
What did code
Yeah,
say?
but
When I like asked around, I was pointed towards like stuff like graffiti. And I think Microsoft's one, it's like maybe like GraphML or something. So I
Because
usually work in
I
like
think trying to
JavaScript.
knowledge graph, I imagine the RSS headline or title would be your node, but then what make up the different vertices and edges that connect the nodes?
So there's a million, that's the thing. There's a million ways to do this. You can
yeah,
start.
I can give you a little bit of guidance here, Scott. So one of our members is a guy called Chris Royce. He hasn't been on recently, but Royse, and he invented a system called Ferromine. But he lives in Kansas, and he has a huge background in graph systems. He's doing a lot of PhD work in graphs. He's very big. I can intro you to Chris if you want. And I myself have done a lot of work in graph databases and data systems. I'm a data guy. So they're notoriously complicated. They are not easy. And so they're very powerful, but the problem they haven't been adopted well is that they're just notoriously difficult to work with. And the concepts are difficult, and generating graphs and working with them, GraphQL and the languages to use are just highly complicated. Just overly complicated compared to SQL or vector databases. They're just difficult to work with. So you end up getting very technical very quickly, and also structures and ontologies. You get pushed towards these things as well. But Chris Royce is your guy. You need to be connected with Chris Royce.
I don't find them too complicated. It depends how deep you go. They just different, like, and you think differently. Like it's.
I mean, everybody knows SQL. SQL's pretty easy, man. It's sort of a humanized language.
SQL is easy,
Nobody
but
knows Cypher.
SQL has tables, and I found SQL is actually harder because it forces this structure on you, like a very rigid kind of boxes on you, right?
It does.
So the graph databases are just a big ball of like mud and.
And who knows Cypher? Like, who here knows how to code in Cypher?
All the LLMs know that I struggled with the whole graph languages. I just asked Claude Code generate me ontology or convert, like make a query. It just it makes very good ones. It's
yeah. One of the things that I do, I use the concepts of a hypergraph. I don't know if you're familiar with hypergraphs or not, but the hypergraph is a kind of multi-edge structure for graphs. So here's an example of the EU AI Act from that they released. So basically, I took the entire EU AI Act and I created a hypergraph structure from it. This one's actually built with TOML. But you can see basically I'm creating the structure here, and that allows in the case of this to be quite easily sort of represented in like a vector database. So the
Yeah.
next step would be to take this and then chunk it into vectors, right? And the vectors are essentially these. And each vector then has an interconnected relationship to everything else in the EU AI Act, right? So this is a really good sort of example of how to take something that is broad difficult for AI to broadly understand because it's,
Yeah.
a very deep document, and then I chunk it up, right?
Do you
It's
chunk
at
it
least
into like, I guess like the textual components of it? Because like, I guess one of the things is when you start having like a graph embedding that has to like vector embed the relationships of a graph, plus you have each schema for a knowledge graph can be different for different domains. And it's like, how do I figure out an automated schema generator that can digest maybe fed data that might look differently and when it's extracting than if I'm just grabbing stuff from the New York Times and it's trying to digest articles and relate things. So there's like the
You're talking
words.
about ontologies,
Yeah,
Scott.
Ontologies
You're
and
talking about ontologies that drive the graph. Graphs are fundamentally schemaless. You can impose a schema on a graph, but they are fundamentally schemaless, which is why Vlad was saying it's a ball of mud, because you have no schema that is enforced upon you. And the way that graphs get around this is that you design an ontology that describes your data first.
yeah. And the
Yes.
problem with the ontologies, I would dive to like last week into it. There are three flagship ontologies for the units of measure, which are completely abstraction. And all from, I don't know why the German, it's like major German institutes, they just put up there's three competing ontologies and it depends. But I think for Scott's thing is like as long as you pick one and it's comprehensive or like simple, it has to be both kind of like very like cover your whole subject matter, but not to be overly complicated.
Yes.
And then it will just make sense of the graphs because if you don't take graphs from other people. So if you take graphs from other people, you're stuck with the ontologies. Like
Yes.
if you're generating your own knowledge graphs, you just pick like a few, and basically you pick subject matters, and then you go look at it. And another pitch for LinkML, they have a LinkML registries. There are ontologies for different subjects. Basically, it's
With LinkML, they'll have those kind of
Uh,
defined. So I'm
And
kind of
this
looking
is
for formal frameworks to kind of work off of, so I have something I can
Yeah.
dialogue with and explore and not just.
And this is
if
why
you
I
really
recommend you get in touch with Chris Royce. Chris is doing his actual master's work is all in ontologies and graphs. He is a guru in this space, and he's part of the Agentics Foundation. He hasn't been on recently, but I can get you connected with him, and he's an ontology graph
Actually,
guru.
yeah, I wanted to ask one more question related to graphs itself. So it is related to computer vision. Is there a way we can create some kind of clusters of point clouds in a knowledge graph?
For what
Um,
purpose?
Yeah, why would you
It's
want to
basically
do
a
that?
3D reconstruction.
Why do you need 3D? Why do you need to represent the graph in 3 dimensions?
Not the graph, it's basically like the semantic for a 3D reconstruction of a digital twin.
I think I know what he's talking about. He's describing it as a world model. So I think
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you'd want that for is like not just to understand what's in the image itself, but the dimensional aspects of where the parts and the elements are. So think of like, yeah, it's a world model. Think of like walking down the street and one element is 5 feet further than the next or 3 feet lower or higher than the other and in a kind of three or a three-dimensional or multi-dimensional structure.
Yeah.
Once you've got that in place, then you can apply other semantics to those things, objects, like a video game. I think
So
is that what you're
yeah,
getting at?
yeah, that kind of thing. So I'm having a structure, SFM, structure for motion cloud point of a video which is converted into a 3D world. So I was thinking about like, is there a way we can create a semantic version of that so I can chunk the whole cloud point itself and create some kind of FOV based
You should, yes,
retrieval.
So
you
you
should
need to
look
be
at.
careful that you know a graph databases are fundamental and graph structures are fundamentally designed and very good at relationships, at defining and mapping and understanding relationships. I'm not following whether you need that sort of very deep relationship modeling in what you're doing.
Is that
No, I mean,
Using
you
graph
can
relation-
actually, most video game engines, they have like a concept of scene graph, right? So the actual graphs, but they never go down to the level of individual pixels or points.
Right.
Like they
Sahil,
usually
have
there is an object, there is like a box in the graph you can describe as a box that's on top of like a sphere, right? So and then you can assign dimensions.
papers released on this already.
Hmm?
Have Cloud Code do research through archive to find the paper that describes taking an image and turning it into a 3D world. The idea you've presented has at least been theoretically experimented with. I don't know if they've already published code samples to go with it.
Yeah, actually, there's one which I was been using. It's from NVIDIA called 3D GRUT, Gaussian splats.
Yeah. One thing that's what people do a lot in sort of medicine biology domain, they do exactly what you said. It's called segmentation. So you take like MRI scan or you take like a CT scan or like any kind of medical imaging. And then they basically label says this is a liver, this is the tumor. Like, so there's like millions of papers on that subject. So if you just search segmentation and point clouds, it will.
Yeah,
And if
so
you
it's
put
the
MRI
same
scans
log?
because MRI is three-dimensional by nature, so it's like MRI
Okay.
segmentation. It will get you like more
Is
than
that
you want.
augmented reality and virtual reality that we're
Yeah,
talking
No,
it's
no,
kind of related to that itself.
yeah.
Also, here in San Francisco, all of the driverless taxi companies, they're doing this, where they create these fully 3D world models of a city, and then they simulate taxis driving around the city with traffic flows, rather than and they're also collecting real world data as well, so that they can train their taxis better rather than just waiting for taxis to crash into something in the real world. So they have all these 3D world simulators. So they're doing a lot of this 3D world simulation. I have a really good friend of mine from Pixar who's doing 3D world simulation, and they're all trying to recruit him to design and build all these 3D world models. So there's a lot of companies that are doing 3D world modeling and the such, and applying this. I don't know if they're using graph databases and graph structures. I don't know if that's the structure that behind it. So you need to figure out whether or
It
not
was actually a wild idea. What I was thinking, like, if we use graphs for chunking the 3D worlds into a smaller, as it is, graphic. It is kind of difficult to train the model on the fly, right?
You
Of
shouldn't
a
train
city
it
block.
typically.
Just one last comment here, guys. Earlier in our hackerspace, we had Manjweep show the sort of complexity of one of my recent repos, and I went in and I got Claude Code web version. I copied and pasted his summary that was created with Dragon's QE system, and it's been running since. This has been running the entire time we've been on this call, and it looks like it's almost completely done. It just did the git push, but essentially it took everything he did, and if you believe, I have to do some testing to actually make sure it works. But according to the final result here, it was able to reduce the complexity substantially. According to this, 95%. It maintainable improved 661 lines. So I think if there's anything that we learned, at least from Montuic's presentation, is that is particularly useful. And I got to try and make sure there's no regressions. But apparently, according to this, there's no regressions. But I won't know until I actually try it. But it looks pretty good. So thumbs up for that tool. It looks amazing.
Did
It's
it
been
actually
running for an
change the
hour.
code, Ruben? Did it change the
Yeah.
code, or is that what it's saying it did?
Yeah, it rewrote all the code. It rewrote it, I did the function, did functional testing. So back to the security checks and this functional test. I've already had that already in place, so it probably used what I already had. All I did was I pointed at my midstream repo, and then I copy and pasted that MD file that he had shared with me. And here we are, an hour and a half later, and apparently it's done. So it's pretty cool.
Hey, yeah, Mantrip and Dragon actually just occurred to me where you can steal from. There is the project called Open Hands. It's kind of like Roof's code flow, and they do have a complexity, or not even complexity, the code quality unit in there. Like, so you might just take a look and see what they got. Like, because I was going to do it myself.
If you can send a link, please.
Yeah, I mean, this gonna disappear. I think I have you on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, yeah, probably.
Yeah, because I saw two things. There is Open Hands, and there is another project. I think it's called Claudia, and they build embeddings from the code snippets. Like, so if you wanna sort of reduce your code duplications, you can basically get piece of code and say like which ones have the same embeddings, and then say like make a module out of them. And
I've got one final. One final thing I want to talk to you guys about. There's a ton of really cool projects that everyone's building. Nolan's and Munchweeps and Dragons and others. They're building these tools, and what I'm trying to think of is creating like a repo or some kind of plugin, something or other that we can pop into a few of our more popular platforms that would probably help bootstrap or get more access to some of the things you guys are building. And I'm trying to think of like what that might look like. Because what I'm worried about is if I host a database, then I'm going to be stuck paying or using like Supabase or some cloud hosting environment. And that almost seems like overkill for what we need the plugin system to do. So then I was thinking maybe we create like a GitHub repo and we have some kind of like, you know, text format, or some file folder format, kind of like how the skills and agents formats work in Claude Code, right? You've got a form like an MD file basically, and then that maybe defines the other repo and other installation requirements, or maybe we just use npm. I don't know, but there's probably some kind of option, and I want to kind of leverage the amount of traffic I get and to help everyone else building stuff get a little more visibility. Any ideas, thoughts? Or maybe I should not bother.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking with Claude Flow, having some ability to overlay your own skills, agents, that kind of thing when you're initializing a repository would be really useful.
Like a purpose?
Well, no, just like edits to the Claude MD, changes to some of the agents, or inserting new agents, inserting new skills, and having those get inserted into a repository kind of at initialization time. And that could be like pulled from a separate repository that's used as like a template or overlay.
I prompt Claude Code to create a start.sh bash script, which, after installing Claude Flow and anything else from Rust, makes whatever changes I need to customize it for my workflows.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's been especially useful for skills that are
Yeah.
At Rub, for that idea you just had, kind of similar to the skills.md way that Claude has set it up. You probably can just have like an intake agent for different projects to help organize it into a standardized infra. That might be the easiest way. So that way everyone doesn't need to know how to use everything at once. They just point to one thing and then that distributes.
It's more like creating a graph for the repositories, the main ideas from the repositories which you're getting as traffic. And then over that, creating some kind of a chatbot or some kind of a AI tool, which will be, as you ideate, it will help you to, it will point to that resource.
I think you're better off make it bring your own agent, so that one, the upkeep of this isn't centralized, and two, can potentially give a chance to experiment with the different LLM.text, robot.text type interfaces for these agents to discover what is available on the platform.
So create a centralized knowledge base, and on that knowledge base, multiple
Create a
like
static
your
knowledge
agents.
base that is web hosted in a static way. Cloudflare Pages supports, I think, up to 20,000 artifacts for free. GitHub Pages, I think, goes even higher. And so in that way, it's able to grow with the size of the community, sponsored by whoever's hosting the different platform. And because it's web-based and because it's static, the responsibility falls on the agent to perform the exploration. And now we have a test bench upon which the different semantic organization surfacing tools or surfacing techniques to see how to best connect an inquiry generated by LLM to a resource that legitimately helps it.
Yeah, it's similar to that Claude Code templates link that you sent. Yeah, possibly. I just don't think it should be specifically Claude Code. I think we could make it a little bit more
Well,
independent.
What other LLMs have web access? Natively.
Well, not the LLM, the CLI or agent. Most of them do at this point.
Is Claude Code using fetch locally, or is the fetch going through Anthropic servers?
It's both their Anthropic servers because you can tell when you try to fetch an NPM site, it fails.
Yeah. So I figure what else has web fetch ability that's otherwise local? Rue didn't have it. We had to create MCPs for that.
Well, now they have it, I guess. But yeah, but everyone starts somewhere. I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to bootstrap probably a plugin system that can leverage the thousands of people who use the systems I put out there every day in a simple way. I like your idea about a website. I like the idea of having it just a URL and a folder, and you just point it at that, and it just magically works if you know where to point it. And that's maybe it's an MCP. Well, I don't know.
I mean, you can just dump a bunch of static context on like Netlify or whatever the CDNs because like you can get them for free, like or to fastly like just create a web space and just dump
Yeah,
it
the
there.
Fastly and the Cloudflare CDN free tiers have a limited number of artifacts. I believe GitHub Pages is bigger, and it kind of
Is
suits our
there? Because I never ran out. I mean, I was putting a lot of things, or maybe you pay like $10.
I've gotten questions from Cloudflare why I needed to upload 40,000 artifacts.
Oh, did
So,
interesting.
All right, guys, we got to wrap up. I got to jump into my next call, and I need a little bit of time. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. The French and the Parisian little impromptu introduction was unexpected but fun. All right, next week, if anyone has anything they want to present, let us know. Reach out to me or Rob or anyone else that is generally speaking here. Love to see what you're building. You guys are always blowing my mind with the stuff you're building. I love seeing this stuff. It's so amazing. Again, thank you everyone, and happy Halloween. Go Blue Jays. All right, till next week. Okay, thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.